Available now on Blu-ray from Arrow Home Video is a box set, Weird Wisconsin, the Bill REBANE collection. Now this one has taken me a long time to get to because it's 4 discs. It's a feature film on at least one feature film on each disc, and voluminous extras. And I like to try to watch everything before I do these reviews. So this one's coming a bit late, but it's going to probably be a long one. So if you keep seeing dissolves in the middle of this, it means I'm looking at my notes that are just off camera over here, because it's something that I've watched these discs over the course of many months and taken notes. So disc 1. If you don't know who Bill REBANE is, Bill REBANE was a Wisconsin-based, for the majority of his career, a Wisconsin-based filmmaker who made low-budget movies, low-budget genre movies, as we say, you know, horror, sci-fi, exploitation, what have you, and managed to keep kicking out the flicks. He managed to keep getting funding, keep making money, and keep making the movies. They're these quirky, goofy little flicks that people still remember, people still talk about, and Arrow released them, so let's get into it, shall we? First up is Monster A Go-Go. Monster A Go-Go. If you've ever heard the radio spot for Monster A Go-Go, you know what I'm talking about there. So here is a film that Bill REBANE started, never completed. Herschel Gordon Lewis of Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs fame needed a feature to fill out a double bill, got the footage from REBANE, shot a little bit of extra, and somehow turned it into this movie, Monster A Go-Go. It's about a astronaut goes up into space, comes back a changed man. He's like this giant, like radiation burned lurch-looking character who kind of wanders around and scares people. There's a lot of footage there's a lot of master shots with little tilts or pans to adjust the shot. There's a lot of which probably just comes from having only the raw footage to work with and not all of the close-ups and inserts that were necessary. There's a lot of voiceover, a lot of bad acting. It's pretty dull at times. It's kind of unintentionally hilarious at times. It's got much like the William Grafé films, it's got 60s go-go girls dancing. Not a lot of go-go in this Monster A Go-Go, other than that. And there's one sequence where you're looking at a radio and the voiceover is done by Herschel Gordon Lewis himself. And it's goofy, it's fun, it's not very long. I mean, it's 70 minutes and it still feels kind of long and slow at that. It's got, the way these discs are broken down is this disc has 2 movies on it. You select the film, and with that film, on the menu, you get the extras that correspond to that. So there's a 10-minute discussion by Bill REBANE. I'm sorry, you select the film, and on that disc is extras that kind of cover both movies individually and together. So you get a 10-minute discussion by Bill REBANE, recorded recently, of each of the movies. You get a Kim Newman discussion of each film. You get 2 Bill REBANE short films. One is about the twist, and one is an educational film about how bank tellers should handle extortion by phone, which are very interesting. He's one of these guys like Russ Meyer, like Herschel Gordon Lewis, like some of the other filmmakers like Grafé, who did feature films, but they also did industrials and educational films and commercials and all this stuff. And it's really cool when the video companies that put these out, and Herc Harvey, who did Carnival of Souls, worked for Centron. He did industrial training films for years and educational films. It's cool when the video companies that put these out can bring that stuff together and give you that as supplements, so you can sort of see the other things these filmmakers were doing, and if their style, as it were, translates to those other things that they did. The second film on this disc is Invasion from Inner Earth from 1974. That's the year I was born. So you get a good distance between the first and the second films on here. It's presented 4:3. It's in color, unlike Monster A Go-Go that was black and white. And it is basically people in a cabin talking movie for the most part. They leave the cabin, but for the most part, it's people talking in a cabin. And basically an alien invasion or some kind of alien event happens, knocks out all communication, and it's people in a cabin talking about, what are we going to do? Very akin in some ways to the Killer Shrews, to my mind, which was Killer Shrews. A lot of stuff happens in Killer Shrews, but a lot of it is people holed up in a cabin trying to figure out what they're going to do. I guess you could say the same thing about Night of the Living Dead, for that matter. So kind of talky, not that interesting. Amateurist local acting, which was the thing REBANE did for the most part. He occasionally would bring in actors that had name value, marquee value, but usually it was people who were part of his repertory troupe in Wisconsin. So they're kind of jawboning a lot in this movie about what's going to happen. It's very, very 70s. 70s clothes, 70s hair, 70s vehicles, a lot of snowmobiles. REBANE because he was in Wisconsin, he did a number of like snowmobile related things. I know there's in the extras they talk about some snowmobile TV special that he did and things like that. So it's kind of a low key film. It's quirky. It's a little on the dull side for me, but such is the nature of low budget film on occasion. Disc 2 opens with The Alpha Incident from 1978. This is a movie that when I watched, and again I watched it a little while ago, but this seems much more prescient, as they say, today than probably that it did when it came out. Basically the idea is it's got two recognizable actors. You have Buck Flower, who played in many things. He plays the homeless guy in Back to the Future. He plays, he's in They Live. He's in Tender Loving Care. He's in a million movies. And Ralph Meeker. And basically Buck Flower plays like a train conductor, train station employee who inadvertently releases a microorganism that just turns you to goo or something like that. And a bunch of people are exposed to it. They think they might be exposed to it, and they have to quarantine in a train station with like a government official who keeps reporting back to these guys in a science lab who are trying to race against the clock to figure out what this thing is and how to thwart it. Buck Flower, I believe, escapes from that area, so they're afraid that he's going to be like a patient zero and will spread this virus worldwide. Boy, we can't identify with anything like that, folks, can we? It was interesting to watch that in a COVID-y or post-COVID-y world. Hope to be in a post-COVID-y world one day. It was interesting to watch that thing where people have to, quarantine and not get near each other and not do this and not do that. And part of the deal with this is you can't fall asleep. So if you fall asleep, you will succumb to this thing and it'll kill you. So it's very confined, much like Invasion from Inner Earth. This is a people in a room movie, or people in a couple of adjacent rooms movie. And I thought it was pretty well done, surprisingly. It's talky, it's people in a room, but the performances are pretty good. It's a couple of familiar faces. One of the guys who's holed up in this played one of the police investigators in Drive-In Massacre, if you're a fan of trashy 70s horror movies like I am. And so it's a bit better level of acting than we've seen in the previous films on this set. And again, it kind of hits home with the whole mysterious violence virus thing that we don't understand. It's not wildly cinematic. Watching this, I felt like it might have played better as like a TV episode or a TV movie or something like that. But I did think, not to get ahead of myself, I did think this was one of the better movies on this set. Next up on disc 2 is The Demons of Ludlow. Now, this is the one of these Bill REBANE movies that I'd actually seen before I got this set. I remember seeing this on some local TV station in the late 80s, maybe early 90s. It was a station that didn't typically show movies, if I recall, and it was part of some syndicated package of films. And I thought it was something else. I thought it was like the Devonsville Terror or the Dunwich Horror. It has a title that sounds a lot like those other things. So I watched it, and it was this weird, cheap movie. And I didn't particularly care for it at the time, but it was odd to see something that regional and low budget on TV, because 90% of the time what you would see on local TV shows for movies were former big time movies that had just been released decades earlier. So The Demons of Ludlow is from, I believe, 1983. And it looks great. Like all the films on this set look as good as they will ever look. It is really nice transfer, very colorful. It always seems weird to say it, but it makes a difference. Good skin tones. And it's about a very small town of Ludlow, somewhere in New England, might even be New Hampshire, or Massachusetts. And it's this little town hall area, and the town has got together for this big unveiling of this old piano that was gifted to the town by the founder of the town, who has been dead for hundreds of years or something like that. And what we learn is that the founder was wronged by members of the town, or felt like he was wronged by members of the town, and put a curse on this piano that when it gets played, these demons or ghosts from the past will be unleashed and basically enact revenge on the descendants of the people he felt did him wrong oh so long ago. So the piano gets played, and the piano bleeds on occasion, and you get people dressed in colonial clothes showing up to do harm to modern day early 80s people. And it was, it felt very Andy Milligan to me. I haven't seen a lot of Andy Milligan films, but what I know of them that I have seen and read is that they're very, very regional theater kind of performance. The clothes and the costumes it feels like you're watching like a local play. And that is aided by the fact that this town hall that it's set in looks like where you would go to watch a local play in a very, very small New England town. So it was interesting, some interesting colored lighting effects when the demons show up. Some, very, very red blood on occasion, but overall, a little silly, a little tedious, but again, like so many of these movies that Arrow releases, so many of these Bill REBANE movies, they would probably play a lot better if you're watching it with friends who are in the right mood for them. I will always give anybody credit who can get a movie made and released. And if Arrow is going to put your movie out, and if Arrow is going to devote a box set to your movie, job well done. And REBANE worked for years and years putting films out. So that's a little aside. So disc 2 has just a couple extras. You have a Bill REBANE interview about each of the two movies, and you have a Richard Harlan Smith visual essay about the Alpha incident. Then we move on to disc 3, which is the last disc that actually has REBANE produced feature films on it. So this disc starts off with a movie called The Game, aka The Cold, from 1984. This is one that allows you to watch it in either 185 widescreen that more or less will fill your TV screen, or 133 square. I think it was either shot one way or it was shot so that it could be presented either way. So it's up to you. If you want to see a little more top and the bottom information, you go with the 133. If you want it to fill your screen, you go with the 185. And it is about a trio of rich sophisticates who, in Wisconsin, as all of these are, who apparently annually get together to play this game where they offer people $1 million to come and stay at this mansion they have and basically be frightened, where they're forced to face their greatest fears, and who will survive and what will be left of them. So it's pretty goofy. It's played straight, but there are some comedy relief characters. There's some cheap special effects and some cheap makeup and practical effects. There's some colored lighting, some fog machines, kind of a lighthearted, silly voiceover at the beginning and the end. Honestly, one of the things I like the best about it is the opening credits were shot over various vintage early 80s board games. They like the Mad Magazine game that I still have, and things like that. So that was kind of cool to see. But overall, this one was just kind of cheap and not very substantial to me, so I didn't think a whole lot of it. The final film on this disc, and the final REBANE film in this set, is Twister's Revenge from 1988. Now, from the title, you think this is a ripoff of the movie Twister, or it's about, who knows what, some board game with colored plastic pad that kills people. This is about an evil, sentient monster truck. That should be all I need to tell you to decide whether you want to watch this or not. I loved Twister's Revenge. Twister's Revenge, I immediately started contacting friends saying, oh my God, have you seen Twister's Revenge? This is set in 1988, shot set in 88, and basically this duo or trio of these backwoods, goofy, goober bad guys decide they want to kidnap the girlfriend and tech expert behind this monster truck that is appearing at a local fair and hold her for ransom for $1 million. And apparently she has recently done upgrades on the truck to turn it essentially into Kit from Knight Rider, where the truck can think and talk and operate on its own. So the truck and its driver go on a four-wheeled, big-wheeled rampage of revenge to try to get these bad guys and get the girl back, and it is hilarious. This is an intentional comedy. I believe all the comedy in this is intentional. Some of it probably is free bonus comedy that wasn't intentional. You get a vintage 1988 Wisconsin State Fair with very 1988 people in it. You get a female rock band, punk pop band doing a weirdo musical number out of nowhere in a biker bar. You get endless things being crutched by this monster truck. You get a REBANE basically redoing one of his most iconic moments from his giant spider invasion movie, only with a giant monster truck coming up over a hill, coming after a guy. You get numerous people climbing into things and then the truck running over them and crushing them, but they pop up and they're okay. It's really goofy and weird. It feels like it was made for kids, but it keeps like flirting with nudity and salaciousness that make me think like, maybe he intended it for teens. I don't know. He said in the interviews on this disc that he just had fun making it and he figured it was a what the hell movie. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I was laughing out loud. I was rewinding it. I was taking photos and sending it to friends. I cannot recommend Twister's Revenge highly enough. This is a mind-blowing, ridiculous film. I don't know, again, if the Mystery Science Theater people ever got a hold of it. I don't know that you need that to make this movie funny, but Twister's Revenge is a movie that I will show people going forward when I have friends over, and I will tell them nothing about it. But if they need to know anything, all I have to say is it's a talking monster truck, and that's probably enough. Extras on this disc, disc 3, are REBANE interview about the game, a REBANE interview about Twister's Revenge, and an amazing extra. My close personal friend, legendary comic artist S.R. Bissett, does a long talk about William REBANE, where it's him sitting down in his office, and you get tons of imagery of press books and posters and all that sort of thing. And it's an overview of Bill REBANE's films and Steve Bissett's experience in seeing them and how he saw them over the years and how he acquired copies over the years. It was fascinating, and it was, I think it was like an hour or so, 30 to 60 minutes long, easily the highlight supplementary wise of the set. I'm not saying that because I know the guy. I'm saying that because it was just fascinating to hear somebody who really loves this stuff and has experienced it, you know, in its era, talk about what that experience was like and lay down a lot of knowledge about REBANE in his movies. Disc 4, the last disc in the set, is just a disc of supplements predominantly, but there is a feature-length documentary entitled Who is Bill REBANE? Relatively recently produced feature-length documentary that is really good, and it's interviews with REBANE and people who worked with him regularly, and it goes through his whole history and filmography. Very, very interesting, quite like that. Even after watching all the other extras, that was still cool. And then you get the full talk that Stephen Bissett did about Bill REBANE, like everything that they didn't put, I think it's all outtakes, everything they didn't put on disc 3 is given as a supplement, and it's equally as interesting, hilarious, and fascinating as what was on disc 3 with Steve, and that's like another hour and a half of Steve Bissett talking about Bill REBANE. So very, very long ramble here with many, many fade outs where I had to go and refer to my notes. I really liked this collection. I can't say that I liked every movie, but if you like low budget regional filmmaking, this is kind of a big part of that. If you like Mystery Science Theater type movies, this fits that bill. And if you like just a straight ahead respectful treatment of movies that are pretty disrespected in every other corner, it's a really cool set to get. So Weird Wisconsin, the Bill REBANE collection, 4 discs, available now on Blu-ray from Arrow Home Video.